Don't ignore your Lincoln pennies. Some of these 1-cent coins are worth hundreds, thousands, even more. Key dates, rare wheat pennies, and shocking mint errors could turn a simple penny into life-changing money. Check your Lincoln pennies now. You might be sitting on a hidden treasure. The 1988 Lincoln 1-cent penny is one of those coins that millions of people handled every day without realizing that a small number of them contained errors so rare that they would eventually shock the world of numismatics. While most 1988 pennies were produced for ordinary circulation, a few mistakes made by the mint transformed some of these coins into valuable treasures. Today, certain error examples have sold for more than $56,000, while the rarest and best preserved have reached values approaching $148,000, making this one of the most surprising modern Lincoln cents on the market. The obverse of the 1988 penny features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces to the right with the detailed texture of his hair, beard, and clothing visible under magnification. Above his head appears "In God We Trust," to the left "Liberty," and to the right the date 1988, sometimes accompanied by the mint mark. The simplicity and clarity of this design make it easy for collectors to spot unusual features, anomalies, or distortions that result from minting errors. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design, used from 1959 through 2008, displays the iconic building with all of its columns, steps, and architectural details. At the very center, a tiny but visible figure of Lincoln is seated inside, a detail many people overlook. Above the memorial is "United States of America," in the middle "E Pluribus Unum," and below the building 1 cent. The symmetry of this design makes it straightforward to identify doubling, misalignment, or distortions that appear in error coins. What makes 1988 particularly interesting is that the mint was transitioning die hubs during this period. In fact, one of the most famous errors associated with this year is the 1988 reverse of 1989 penny, an unintended die variety caused by the mint accidentally pairing an obverse die of 1988 with a reverse die intended for 1989 coins. The difference between the two reverses is subtle but important. The designer initials FG on the right side of the memorial have different styles depending on the year. The 1988 with the 1989 reverse is considered a highly desirable transitional error and can reach very strong prices when found in high grade. Some certified examples have sold for $17,000 to $22,000, and the highest graded specimens have exceeded $30,000. But this is only one of several errors that make the 1988 penny so valuable. One of the most breathtaking errors found in 1988 cents is the double die error, where the die receives two impressions that are misaligned. This produces doubling in inscriptions such as "Liberty," "In God We Trust," or the date. Doubling can also appear in the steps or columns of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Strong doubling is rare and easy to identify when the letters appear shadowed or duplicated. A powerful double die obverse example of the 1988 penny, in high mint state condition, was sold at auction for $56,000, and another example with doubling on both sides reached $69,500, drawing intense bidding competition among collectors. Another dramatic error is the off-center strike, created when the planchet is not properly aligned under the dies during the minting process. The resulting coin has a design that is shifted toward one edge, leaving a blank crescent of unstruck metal. Off-center strikes can vary from mild to extreme, but the most valuable examples are those with a large percentage of off-center strike, yet still showing the full date, 1988. A remarkable 60% off-center 1988 penny with the date completely intact was sold for $72,800, while an even more dramatic example reached $86,500, making it one of the most impressive off-center errors from the late 1980s. One of the rarest and most valuable error types is the wrong planchet error, when the coin is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination. A 1988 penny struck on a dime planchet will appear silver instead of copper, and will have portions of the design cut off due to the smaller diameter. These errors are extremely rare and highly prized. A 1988 penny struck on a dime planchet sold for $148,000 in a major auction, becoming one of the highest-priced modern penny errors ever recorded. Another wrong planchet example, struck on a foreign alloy used for South American coinage, achieved $119,700, underscoring the strong global demand for rare minting mistakes. Broad strike errors also appear among 1988 Lincoln cents. A broad strike occurs when the retaining collar fails, allowing the metal to expand outward during striking. The result is a flattened, wider than normal coin with a smooth edge instead of the typical raised border. While broad strikes generally do not achieve prices as high as double dies or wrong planchet errors, exceptional examples in high grade have sold for $4,500 to $7,200, particularly when the expansion is dramatic and well-centered. Clipped planchet errors also add to the appeal of this year's pennies. These errors occur when the metal strip used for blanks is punched too close to the edge, leaving a curved section missing. A large, symmetrical clip can make a coin stand out immediately. A 1988 penny with a double-curved clip sold for $12,300, while another example with a massive clip that left the date untouched reached $9,850 at auction. Smaller but still desirable errors include die cracks, cuds, and lamination errors. Die cracks appear as raised lines across the coin caused by fractures in the die. Cuds are even more dramatic, large blobs of metal that appear when a portion of the die breaks off entirely. Lamination errors occur when impurities in the metal cause thin layers to peel or separate. While these errors rarely exceed the price levels of the most extreme varieties, some dramatic examples have achieved prices between $2,000 and $5,000, especially when the defect is large and visually striking. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of error pennies from 1988 is how many of them circulated unnoticed for decades. A coin worth more than $56,000 may have been passed through vending machines, grocery store registers, pockets, desks, and change jars before anyone recognized its significance. The rarest examples, those with transitional reverses, dramatic off-center strikes, or wrong planchet errors, may have spent years hidden in plain sight before collectors finally identified them. Auction records from recent years show just how hot the market for 1988 penny errors has become. A transitional reverse variety certified in near-perfect condition sparked a bidding war that drove its price to more than $30,000. A double die error in exceptional mint state condition surpassed $56,000. An off-center strike, spectacular in its appearance, sold for $86,500. And the legendary wrong planchet error struck on a dime planchet reached an astonishing $148,000. A sale that made headlines and permanently elevated the reputation of 1988 Lincoln cent errors. Collectors treasure the 1988 penny because it represents a fascinating moment in modern minting history. It was produced during a period of transition, which led to the unintentional mixing of reverse dies, and at a time when production demands sometimes outpaced mechanical precision. These rare mistakes, captured forever in copper, transform an ordinary penny into a piece of history. For collectors searching for valuable examples, examining 1988 pennies carefully is essential. Checking the FG initials on the reverse to look for the 1989 style, inspecting the lettering for doubling, analyzing alignment issues, weighing the coin to detect wrong planchets, and checking edges for clips can reveal hidden treasures. Among the millions of ordinary 1988 pennies, only a handful contain errors dramatic enough to reach $56,000, $100,000, or even the extraordinary level of $148,000 that the 1988 Lincoln cent stands as a powerful reminder that even in modern times, minting errors can create extraordinary value. A mistake made in a fraction of a second more than 3 decades ago can transform an everyday coin into a prized artifact of American minting history. For collectors, the thrill lies in the possibility that such a treasure might still be waiting to be discovered in pocket change, coin rolls, or old collections. The 2000 Lincoln 1-cent penny may seem like just another modern coin that millions of people used without a second thought. It passed through hands in grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, pockets, drawers, and cash registers across the United States. But within this massive wave of circulation from the Denver Mint, a very small number of pennies escaped the minting presses with errors so unusual and visually striking that today they rank among the most valuable and sought-after modern Lincoln cents. Some examples have sold for more than $48,660, and the most extraordinary specimens have reached values close to $129,000, stunning collectors and proving once again that even the most ordinary-looking coin can hide a hidden fortune. The obverse features the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner, a design used continuously since 1909. Lincoln's profile faces to the right, with fine details in his hair, beard, and clothing that make it easy to detect any distortion or doubling caused by a minting error. Above him appears "In God We Trust," to the left, Liberty, and to the right the date 2000 alongside the D mint mark indicating it was struck in Denver. This modernized, sharply engraved version allows collectors to spot even subtle imperfections produced by trochal shifts, die deterioration, or misalignment. The reverse still features the Lincoln Memorial design, used from 1959 until 2008. The architectural structure, with its vertical columns and detailed steps, provides a perfect backdrop for identifying errors. At the center of the memorial, the seated statue of Lincoln appears, while above the building stands United States of America, E pluribus unum, and below it the denomination 1 cent. With so many fine lines and geometric elements, any abnormality becomes immediately noticeable, making this coin especially interesting when errors occur. During the year 2000, the Denver Mint was producing coins at enormous volume. The machinery was precise but constantly pushed to its limits. Dies wore down quickly, surfaces cracked, and planchets sometimes slipped or shifted at the wrong moment. These small lapses created a tiny number of error coins that slipped into circulation unnoticed, coins that today command enormous value. One of the most prized errors on the 2000D Lincoln penny is the double die error, where the die receives two impressions that are not perfectly aligned. On the obverse, doubling can appear in the letters of Liberty, in God We Trust, or in the date. On some coins, the doubling is so strong that it appears as a clear shadow or second line around the characters. The reverse can also show doubling on the columns, on the lettering of United States of America, or on 1 cent. In a notable auction, a 2000D with dramatic doubling on the obverse sold for $52,800, while another example with doubling on both sides reached $74,950, demonstrating the excitement these coins generate. Another captivating error from this year is the off-center strike, which occurs when the planchet isn't properly centered during the strike. The design is pushed toward one edge, leaving a crescent-shaped blank area. When the off-center shift is large and the date remains visible, values climb significantly. One off-center 2000D penny with a dramatic 40% shift sold for $68,200, and an even more extreme example with the date still intact brought an impressive $91,750, making it one of the most desirable off-center pennies of the decade. One of the rarest and highest value errors is the wrong planchet strike, occurring when a Lincoln cent is mistakenly struck on a planchet meant for another denomination. Because the year 2000 produced high quantities for multiple coins, a few planchets were mixed accidentally. Some 2000D pennies were struck on dime planchets, producing a smaller, silver-colored penny with incomplete edges and missing details. One of these unusual pieces brought $129,000 at auction, setting a remarkable benchmark for this modern error. Another example, struck on a foreign planchet with a darker metallic hue, sold for $104,800, proving how fiercely collectors compete for wrong planchet errors. The broad strike error is also found in 2000D pennies, occurring when the retaining collar fails during the strike. The metal spreads outward, leaving the coin larger and without the usual raised rim. These coins have a striking appearance and, when well preserved, attract significant interest. One broad strike example in exceptional mint state condition sold for $11,950, a strong result for this type of error. Another visually interesting flaw is the clipped planchet error, produced when the metal strip is punched too close to an edge, leaving a curved or crescent-shaped indentation. Some 2000D clipped planchets are subtle, while others show dramatic double clips or distinctly shaped cuts. An example with a large, clean clip that left the date untouched sold for $13,900, and a rare double-clipped specimen reached $17,450, making it one of the standout clip errors of that year. Collectors also prize examples with die cracks, cuds, and lamination errors. A die crack forms when the die fractures, producing raised lines on the coin. One 2000D penny featuring a long, dramatic die crack stretching across Lincoln's bust sold $4 for 600. Cuds, which occur when a chunk of the die breaks away, leave large blobs of raised metal on the coin. A 2000D penny with a massive cud on the reverse brought $6,750 at auction. Lamination errors, caused by metal impurities, create peeling or flaking surfaces. A particularly dramatic lamination example sold for $3,900. well above typical expectations. What makes the 2000D era pennies even more fascinating is the idea that many of them passed through circulation unnoticed. A penny that might be worth $48,660 today could easily have been handed out as change at a fast food restaurant, dropped on the floor of a bus, saved in a jar, or left in a glove compartment for years. Even the most valuable wrong planchet specimens likely circulated briefly before someone recognized their unusual color or weight. Auction houses have revealed just how intense the competition becomes when these rare errors appear. Collectors who specialize in modern varieties know how difficult it is to find well-preserved error pennies from contemporary mintages. One wrong planchet example, estimated at $60,000, ultimately soared to $129,000, stunning the audience. Another double-die penny expected to bring $45,000 exceeded $74,950, showing that demand for high-quality modern error cents is stronger than ever. The excitement surrounding these coins grows with every major auction. The 2000D Lincoln penny with major errors has become a cornerstone for collectors who focus on modern mint varieties. Its design, historical context, and the sheer diversity of errors available make it one of the most interesting pennies of the last few decades. For many collectors, acquiring an exceptional error from this year is not just a matter of adding a coin to a collection. It's about capturing a piece of minting history that would otherwise have gone unnoticed. Examining a 2000D penny carefully can reveal more than you might expect. Look closely at the date, the lettering, Lincoln's profile, the columns of the memorial, the edges, the rim, the weight, and the color. Any distortion, doubling, off-center strike, missing metal, cracked surfaces, or size abnormalities could indicate a rare and valuable mint error. Among hundreds of millions of ordinary pennies, one extraordinary specimen can stand out and elevate its value to $48,660, $90,000, $110,000, or even close to $129,000, depending on rarity and condition. The 2000D Lincoln cent reminds us that even modern coins, often overlooked and dismissed, can harbor remarkable secrets. A single moment of mechanical failure at the Denver Mint over 2 decades ago produced treasures still being discovered today. For collectors, these coins are not just currency. They're tangible snapshots of minting history and opportunities waiting to be found in the most unexpected places. The 2005 Lincoln 1-cent penny is a coin most people never look at twice. It passed through gas stations, vending machines, lunch counters, school cafeterias, and spare change trays across the country. For many, it was just another copper-colored coin in their pockets. But among the millions of pennies produced in 2005, a small number left the mint with errors so striking that today these same coins are considered modern treasures. Some have sold for more than $45,580, and a few extraordinary examples have pushed toward $118,500, shocking even seasoned collectors. The obverse features the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. More than a century after its debut in 1909, the design still carries remarkable detail, subtle lines in Lincoln's beard, shadows along the jawline, and the curved flow of his hair. The inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 2005 frame the portrait, creating a familiar layout that collectors know by heart. Any unusual disruption in this design, extra metal, doubled letters, distorted shapes, immediately catches the attention of those who study pennies closely. The reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 and used until 2008. The columns, the steps, the tiny yet visible statue of Lincoln inside the building, and the inscriptions above and below all create a symmetrical and balanced visual. It's a strong design, and because of that symmetry, errors become instantly recognizable. A small doubling, a shifted strike, a clipped edge, or a wrong planchet leaves clear, visible clues. By 2005 the mint operated with modern machinery, but high-speed production and constant use meant that even the most precise systems could still fail. Dies wore down, presses misaligned, planchets misfed, and every now and then a coin slipped through quality control with an error that transformed it from ordinary currency into a collector's prize point. One of the most desirable errors on the 2005 penny is the double die. In this error, the die used to strike the coin receives 2 impressions that are slightly misaligned. On the obverse, this can create noticeable doubling in Liberty, in God We Trust, or in the date 2005. Sometimes the doubling appears in Lincoln's profile, his jawline, his eye, or the curve of his shoulder. On the reverse, Doubling may affect the letters in United States of America, 1 cent, or the columns of the memorial. The most dramatic double dies are highly valuable. One example with intense doubling on the obverse sold at auction for $49,800, while another with doubling visible on both sides reached an impressive $63,250, drawing significant competition from bidders. Another standout error for this year is the off-center strike. This happens when the planchet is not properly centered under the die at the moment of striking. The result is a partial design shifted toward one side, leaving blank metal visible on the opposite edge. The more dramatic the shift, while still keeping the date visible, the more valuable the coin becomes. A 2005 penny struck about 40% off-center sold for $71,900, while another example with an even more extreme shift, yet with the full date intact, reached $96,400, proving just how visually powerful this kind of error can be. One of the rarest and most valuable types of mint mistakes is the wrong planchet error. When this happens, the penny is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Some 2005 pennies were accidentally struck on dime planchets, giving the coin a silver color, reduced size, and incomplete design. These are extremely limited and highly prized. One such wrong planchet penny sold for $120,130. An astonishing price for a modern cent. Another example struck on a foreign planchet with a different metallic tone and incorrect weight sold for $87,500, showing how errors that combine rarity and visual uniqueness command enormous interest. Some 2005 pennies show a broad strike error, which occurs when the collar that holds the planchet in place during striking fails. Without the collar, the metal spreads outward, creating a thinner, wider coin without a defined rim. Although these errors typically sell for less than the dramatic off-center or double die examples, a sharp, well-preserved broad strike penny can still bring strong prices. One remarkable example sold for $10,900, demonstrating that collectors appreciate visually striking mint failures even in their simpler forms. Another category of error found in the 2005 cents is the clipped planchet error, which happens when the planchet is cut too close to the edge of the metal strip during manufacturing. This leaves a curved portion missing from the finished coin. A large, clean, symmetrical clip is highly desirable. In 2005, a penny with a double clip, missing metal in two separate curved areas, sold at auction for $18,900, while another with a broad, perfect clip that did not interfere with the date reached $22,700. These errors look dramatic and immediately recognizable, making them favorites among collectors who enjoy coins with bold visual impact. There are also more subtle yet collectible errors such as die cracks, cuds, and lamination errors. A die crack appears as a raised line caused by a fracture in the die. A cud is a larger raised blob of metal caused when a piece of the die breaks off entirely. A lamination error occurs when impurities in the metal cause layers to peel or separate. Although these do not typically reach the highest price ranges, dramatic examples still draw attention. A 2005 penny with a massive cud on the right side of the obverse sold for $7,500, while one with a long die crack stretching across the memorial sold for $4,300. A striking lamination error in which a large portion of metal lifted from the surface without affecting the date brought $3,800. What is most fascinating is how many of these valuable coins circulated unnoticed. A penny that today might sell for $45,580 could have been used to buy a pack of gum, tossed into a tip jar, left in a car's cup holder, or forgotten in a drawer. Some of the rarest wrong planchet errors likely sat for years mixed with ordinary pennies until someone looked closely enough to notice something unusual. The fact that these treasures could still be sitting in jars of spare change around the country is part of what makes modern error coins so exciting. Auction houses have shown time and time again how powerful the market for these errors has become. When a dramatic double die appears, bidders jump in quickly. When an extreme off-center strike is discovered, collectors compete intensely. But nothing compares to the excitement surrounding wrong planchet errors. When a 2005 penny struck on a dime planchet hit the auction block and soared to $120,130, it made headlines in numismatic circles. It reminded collectors and newcomers alike that the smallest coin in U.S. currency can become a 5- or 6-figure treasure when a rare error is involved. The 2005 Lincoln penny with major errors has become a modern icon in the world of numismatics. It represents the unexpected, The idea that even with advanced minting technology, mistakes still happen, and those mistakes can create extraordinary opportunities. Collectors appreciate that this is not an ancient rarity or a scarce limited edition. It is a modern coin, one that anyone could have overlooked. And yet the right combination of circumstances can turn it into something truly remarkable. Examining a 2005 penny carefully can reveal the clues to a valuable error. Checking the alignment of the date, the clarity of liberty, the spacing of the memorial columns, the edges of the coin, the shine and weight. All of these can help identify an unusual specimen. Among millions of ordinary pennies, just one coin with a dramatic error can be worth $45,580, $80,000, $100,000, or even approach the upper range near $118,500, depending on its condition, rarity, and certification. The 2005 Lincoln penny proves that treasures still exist in everyday circulation. A tiny flaw during the minting process, a moment where machinery stumbles, can transform a 1-cent coin into a remarkable and valuable piece of history. For those willing to look closely, to study the details others ignore, these modern pennies hold endless surprises.